Jess Janz, here we are again. We're back.
For no particular reasons.
No, well, yeah, we won't harp on this, but so this is for listeners because other people will be involved in this at some point. So we had not this conversation, but we had a conversation like a few days ago, and then on my end, there was what we will call a glitch. We glitched. The At Sea podcast glitched, and a marvelous conversation was not recorded. Is
yeah.
it?
I'm really on my. I feel a little bit unhinged today. I'm feeling a little goofy. I've gone into weird o'clock, but I feel like it's going to be.
That's
hopefully, for our benefit. I feel we're gonna go somewhere.
I can take that.
Okay. Yeah.
I can take that. No, this is like, I'm thinking about our previous conversation is like that moment. It's like you want to take the camera out to capture the moment, but then you decide that the moment is too special. And so you don't take the camera out and just let the moment be the moment.
Right. Yeah.
That was it.
Well, and I've also been like, haha, because you pressed on some, took me by surprise in that conversation of like where our conversation went. And now I'm like, oh, well, maybe you're not going to go there again because I'm not going to be able to, it'll be just a different response, obviously.
Totally.
And like,
yeah, we'll cover some of the same stuff, but I have a whole other,
you prepared a whole second podcast for us, for our entertainment only.
Yes. Dude, if we're not having a good time, this is not going to be fun.
That's right.
But also, I've got a completely different set of curveballs that I plan on throwing. So
perfect. Well, there's so much to curve in the world, so let's go.
Okay.
I don't know. That one wasn't as good as my At Sea one.
That's fine. No, it's okay. Legendary joke. So we are having this conversation in large part because you are releasing a book very, very soon. What's the actual release date? Let's get to that right now. What's the
14th, July 14th.
Wow, like tomorrow. This is like tomorrow.
Yeah. I go to New York next Tuesday on the 7th
to start a book tour.
The book tour starts next week, which is
It's gonna be great.
It's crazy.
It's gonna be fantastic.
It's gonna be fantastic.
And you'll be in San Francisco on the 19th, on Sunday the 19th.
Yeah, I'll be in Vancouver, Washington, just over the river on the 18th, San Francisco the 19th, and then Montecito the 21st.
So let's dive in somewhere where we were before and kind of work backwards, which is you have a book. It's been finished, and now some people have read it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people read it because they needed to say I like it, so that you could tell other people that people have read it and liked it.
That's right.
Which is part of the process. And now people you don't know will be picking up your book and reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about the word like finished. Like you finished a book and now you're publishing a book, because that's kind of the like you're releasing this in the world, which means at some point you had to be done writing and putting in the world. Do you feel like it's done? Do you actually emotionally feel like this book is finished?
In a way, I do. But yes and no, because my parents I was like, oh, I handed in my manuscript. There was obviously like a handing in of a final, but it's never the final, because it's like, oh, we'll get back to you if there are any edits. Oh, we'll get back to, actually, so-and-so said that, the secondary copy editor said that this needed to be changed. Oh, this next process is coming next. So there's always like the writing was done, but even when the writing's done, there's still like little, at some point it was done and there was no bow handed to me.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Not that's not to say that someone missed out on handing me the bow. It's just like that's how that process works, right? But we just go. I guess it's done. Like I didn't even know that it had officially gone to print until it was too late, and I wanted to change the font, and I was told that it's not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
And then there's like, yeah, in a way, it's like I put down the writing of the book last April, but then there's this, I've been talking about it and you keep thinking about the topics and ruminating on all of it. And now I'm already doing conversations like this and all the press that comes with it. So it's like, I'm still living the stories And then this
Yep.
whole thing that hasn't even started yet, which is, as you pointed out, people I don't know are of their own volition are going to purchase the
Yep.
book, spend their hard-earned late capitalism cash on my book, and hopefully feel like that was a good use of their precious dollars.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a whole other thing. So, um, yes and no.
There's kind of a difference between like being finished with something and like it being finished, right? There's like
That's right. That's right.
I need to be done with this thing because
Yeah.
I need to or want to let it go in the world. It's one of
Right.
the like the wrestling matches of makers and creators is like, when do I know that I'm done? And either someone else tells you if
Hmm.
you're part of
Right.
the machinery tells you that you're done.
That's right.
Or it's like a sheer act of will. I just have to now like you never feel finished with a thing.
Yeah. And I think there's like Kate Baer talks about this. She said like a book, finishing a book or even just finishing a poem is like taking a picture of a tree on any given day. And it's like,
Okay.
when is a tree done? Is a tree fully grown? But it's still growing. A tree today on, I don't know what day, June 29th. Next June 29th, it's going to be bigger, but it is a fully mature tree today, and it's going to look
Yes.
different 2 months from now.
Yeah.
And so, what is the correct? There's no correct picture of the tree. There's no finished picture of the tree. There's just the tree on that day as you present it.
Hmm.
And so, it's a way of being able to release because people go, "Oh, you learn so much as you write." And so
Yes.
by the time you finish any project I've been a part of, whether that's an album or a book or a bigger project, by the time you get to the end, you're like, "Oh, I'm really cooking now." And like, I want to change what I started with because now I've like developed the skill in the process of writing the book.
Yes.
And if we just kept going back with what we know now, we'd never have a book in our hands. So, yeah.
Insofar as what you just said with regards to like there's so much you learn in the process. What do you know? We talked about this before, and so you've had time to think about this answer. What do you know now about yourself that you might not have known? What do you see now about you in your life that you might not have known or seen before writing this book?
Ugh, I mean, on the one hand, I'm the way I wanted to answer this is so self-deprecating, and I'm
Go
trying not to
do
be
it.
an
It's
asshole to
great. Start
myself.
there. That's fine. Do
But
it.
it's like I was like, "Oh, am I not as I've learned that I'm kind of a big baby and, like, not resilient. I'm a wimpy little feely baby
Why do you
because
what
it's
time?
been
Okay,
so
stop there. Stop
but I
there.
don't actually fully believe that. That's
Okay,
just why I stopped
so that's
myself.
not okay, that's the lead in. What do you mean by that? Because you don't mean that you're a big, weepy, feely
Well,
baby.
there's,
What do
like
you mean?
we reward and we celebrate the tact and like the way that people handle things when people handle things gracefully.
Yes.
Like we're like, oh, that person, they're so valiant in the way that they're dealing with their cancer, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's probably not the full story. We don't make room for someone to like be really pissed that they have cancer or to
Yes.
not have a lot of hope and optimism. And that means that they're not dealing well with their cancer. Just means that
Yeah.
they have like very complex feelings about something that's really crappy and really
Yes.
scary.
Yeah.
Not to equate this to cancer at all, but to say I have I've been humbled by how hard the experience of writing the book was, how confronting it
Okay.
is with your own stuff, how emotional it is to have the machine of capitalism and product and the commodification of our art and the like marriage or sort of muddy congealing of artist self and product make a living self or the like
Yeah.
please the please the man stuff that's all kind of connected into this
Yep.
wrestling with that um and wondering like with how hard like this next season is and like anticipating trying to like detach from outcome um has been really hard for me. Like I've just been spinning for a year being like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen with
Yes.
this? Like what's gonna come from this? What are people gonna think of me? What are people gonna think of the project? And going like, I thought that I'd be like that this would be the fun part, and it's like there's stuff that's so surreal and so beautiful, and I'm having already the experience of people coming up and being like, "Oh, this book inspired me to introduce
Yeah.
myself to a barista," or like think differently about the way that I talk to
Yeah.
my neighbors or whatever, and that's the beautiful reward in it. But I'm
Yep.
surprised that I've been such a stress case,
Yeah.
and like having um feeling really mostly overwhelmed and scared.
Yeah.
So that's what I've discovered about myself. I guess I have
Yeah,
some
there's
work
there's
in
so
that.
much to there's so much to the actual, like, the mechanism of book release and publishing that
Yeah.
is, like, you really don't you can't have anyone really you have to be in it because it's not about the thing, it's not about having a publicist or having an editor. It's actually about how I the ball game is how I react to that. It's
Yeah.
not like there's the idea of having an editor, and then there's having someone someone hand back a chapter to you that's like they've raked through the entire thing, and you're like, "I'm wrong about my life? How am I wrong about my life?" Like,
That's me.
that's
Yeah.
that's a dip and the ball game is actually how do I react and respond to those things? Um, when, uh, when we talked last time, you had, published, to Instagram the passing off of this book to a guy named Ryan, who shows up in the
Mhm.
book, and to whom the book is dedicated, which he didn't know the book was dedicated to him before you handed it to him.
That's right.
What a wonderful moment.
Yeah, it
Um,
really was.
I'd love for you to talk a little bit about, um, Ryan specifically and your history, because that like, your relationship with Ryan and the work you started really kind of is, like, at least, like, the seed of the beginning of
Mhm.
kind of the heart of the book.
Yeah.
But along with that, um, again, part of what we talked about was other people's voices can be really problematic in our process. We don't like this we tend to get sold this kind of weird binary where it's like it's all pop art and you make it so that it can sell or it doesn't matter what anyone thinks.
Right.
And the reality is that there's all this interplay in here
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
that the real trick is deciding who matters in our process because someone's going to
Mhm.
matter in a process. Like
Right.
someone's going to read the book and it's going to matter to us. We can't
Right.
escape that.
Right.
Ryan's one of the folks for you, like, it mattered to you. This book mattered to you because of him.
Yeah.
So I want you to talk about a little bit about, like, him and your guys' story, but also, like, who else was in there for you with regards to,
Yeah.
like, without this person, this project doesn't exist, and I wouldn't want it to.
Right. Um, yeah, so Ryan, I met Ryan because a hairdresser did me dirty and I had like a crazy haircut that looked really bad and had like tiger stripes, like we call them Kelly Clarkson streaks from like circa when was her first album, like 2001, that first album cover. She has the zigzag part. Do you know about zigzag
Uh-huh,
parts, Justin?
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I do
She had that
yes.
on that album cover. She looked really cool and cute on
She's
that
great.
cover. It did not look
Totally.
great. What was going That's not what I asked. That's not the vision I
Okay.
had for my hair
Yes.
in when it
This is
was
not what I ordered.
2011.
Yeah.
11 years later, it was not in fashion anymore.
Mm-mm.
And so I'm asking around at the restaurant I worked in. It was sort of like I had that feeling of like dog in a cone where it was like all my confidence was gone. I'm like wearing a hat, being like, someone needs to help me with my hair. And my beautiful friend Lauren, who has very gorgeous hair, said, you should go to my guy. Go see my guy, Ryan. So I made an appointment with Ryan. And, I was there for a long time because he's correcting kind of a mess. So there's like a lot of potions and toners and witchery happening with like
Yep.
chemicals and science and foils and heating and the whole thing.
Yeah.
And we immediately hit it off. And I was like, who is this magical creature? He's like, immediately, everyone is drawn to him. I describe him in the book
Mm,
as every person that I have met who knows Ryan says, oh, Ryan's one of my best friends. And I'm like,
mm.
I know that I've talked to about 100 people who have said that. So like, and
Yes.
because he makes you just feel so
Mm,
seen. And um He is an incredible storyteller. He loves and relishes in a well-told story. And because when you get your hair done, when women or when people get like when you're there to get your hair dyed, you're there for 3 to 5 hours. So he's like, we've got a lot of ground to cover, and I don't want to hear about like your office melodramas or how much you hate your job. I want you to tell me like a really good story about your girls' weekend or like what's like your
This
best.
is
Give
the
me your
demand.
best war.
This is his demand as you're in the chair.
Yeah.
He's telling
He's
you
like,
what you're allowed to talk about.
that's right. He's like, I'm gonna make you look beautiful. You must come with a story and entertain me, please.
That's fantastic.
And
That's a good deal.
it's a super great deal. And does it in a way, he's not like, present your story to me. Like, he's an incredible question asker as well, and wants to talk about possibility and dreaming. And literally, the people, when I met him, he shared his studio with a florist and a wedding dress designer. And so you'd go get your hair done, and there's like buckets of flowers everywhere, and there's like silk hanging from the ceiling. It was this amazing space to be in. And the florist was one of his hair clients, and she had some corporate job. And it was at a hair appointment where he was like, what would you be doing if like time and money wasn't an issue? And she was like, oh, she kind of whispers like, I've always kind of secretly wanted to have a flower shop. I've always wanted to be a flower design for like weddings. And he was like, well, what would it take? What 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 are the elements? And she left that hair appointment with like a loose business plan and like the beginnings of like this
That's
company
awesome.
idea. And like he gave her rent for crazy cheap, like $200 a month for 2 months. And then he raised it by $200 for the next 2 months and like raised it incrementally in order to give her the space to like make this dream come alive. And he's
Wow.
done that with other friends in many different ways. And
Hmm.
um I was 21 when I met him, and coming like really recently dismantling from my Christian upbringing and like kind of going through deconstruction, and grew up learning that, like, being taught that homosexuality was a sin, and like reckoning with that, and like coming from like a very sheltered life of
Hmm.
like what I should value most is like get married and like have kids, and no matter what else I'm chasing in my life, like that's the most important thing. And Ryan, in so many ways, I mean, my like just opened my world. Like, he was someone
Yeah.
who like didn't go to he did I mean he went to college, and then was a hairdresser, and has lived many, many different lives and lived all over the place. And when he was 33, he moved to Thailand for a year, and he would come back twice in the year to come do all of our hair. Like he'd like come home for 10 days, book everyone, probably make like 10 grand in that week, was like exhausted, but like to help
Yeah.
us keep up on our roots, which is
Yes.
just hilarious. Um, but sold all his furniture, and like I remember when he did that and told me that he was gonna go, he's like, "Yeah, I just want a break. I wanna, like, live out of a backpack for a year." And I was like, "You're putting your life on pause. I didn't know that was an option." He's like, "No, babe, I'm living." He's like,
Yes.
"We have our whole life to stay somewhere forever. And, like,
Yes.
why wouldn't I go to Thailand? Like, that's exactly what I should be doing at 33." And
Yeah.
so in so many ways, it was like, "Who are you, though, Jess?" Like, he would speak to me. He helped me and encouraged me to find myself in so many ways.
And a voice from a like a helpful, caring voice from an unexpected place. Like, it's one thing to be like to be raised in a certain way, which is not necessarily bad, but like this is where help comes from. This is where we're headed. Here's the road. Here's the helpful road sign. This is what it
Yeah,
looks like. And
yeah,
then to have like help and care come from like a side road, or come from
yeah.
like the woods off the side of a helpful voice from an unexpected place. It's part of the practice of art making has to do with actually being able to pay attention more broadly, like just
Mhm.
move away from the laser focus
Yeah,
of like, this is where I'm headed, and then attend to like, oh wait, here's kind of a possibility. Here's a new opening.
yeah, yeah, totally. And, um, to your question of, like, who do we listen to, I think as a young adult, or maybe that's, like, our experience in life of, like, going, "Oh, no, someone told me I need to do this with my business, and so I guess I need to fix that thing." Like, if we don't have an anchor
Yeah.
of who we are and where we know that we're going and who we choose to hand that authority to in our
Hmm.
life, because there are people who say like, "Hey, I know who you've told me you want to be and this ain't it. So like, let's talk about
Yes.
that too." And in the encouraging way of like, "Hey, I recognize this thing that maybe you don't even know about yourself. Like,
Yep.
have you tried approaching your art this way?" And
Uh-huh.
like, we have to decipher and decide which who we decide to listen to, I guess.
And
That makes
you had an encounter with Jonathan Merritt. We talked about Jonathan. You and I
Yeah.
talked about Jonathan a bit. He's an incredible
One
person,
way.
and
He's awesome. Yeah.
in the publishing world, in the machinery that is the publishing world,
Yes.
there are some really wonderful humans.
Yeah.
And Joy Egerich, who you had a conversation with on Substack, which
Yep.
if you're listening to this and you haven't, if you're not familiar with what Joy is doing on Substack, she's calling it like what's it, just 1 minute or something like this.
Just
It's like
one quick question.
one quick question, and
Yeah.
she's having these wonderful conversations with artists and with writers and public. She's a delight, and she's one of those folks that like you run into and she's unexpected and she's got a very
Mhm.
different perspective. I have a similar relationship to Joy. Jonathan Merritt was a voice in your life and your journey who like came along and helped you pivot because
Yeah.
you weren't writing this book
That's
at
right.
the time.
Yeah.
You had other things. You were in a rock band apparently, and we'll get back to that later on. Um,
You're
and
not letting
Jonathan
that
came. I'm never letting that go. It's a
Okay.
great. I've listened to it more than once. It's a fantastic EP.
Good.
We'll come back to it.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
great. But Jonathan Merritt came along and helped you pivot and
Yep.
helped you see things. So talk about that moment. What you were doing. This is like I'm guessing like 2.5+ years ago. You were
Mhm.
up to some things. You were doing things creatively. You were curating these dinners and these conversations, and you were writing. And then
Mhm.
Jonathan Merritt came along and said, "What about this?" So talk
Right.
about the stuff you were up to, and then like, what did he see that you didn't?
Yes. Um, yeah, so I started Dinner with Strangers in 2017 with Ryan, which I didn't get there, sorry, in my
It's all right.
non-succinct answer.
That's totally
So
fine. That's why I'm here.
that's
It's
right,
that's
you're guiding the ship.
yes,
Um, so I had been running these dinners in 2017 when my band broke up, which we'll come back to.
yes, we will.
Um, and the dinner was this like this new creative something was happening with the dinner, but I wasn't really sure. We
Yeah.
ran it for a year and a half. And then I met a guy at a wedding, yada, 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 moved to
And but
California
just
for
as a
said
side note,
guy.
hip hop's like when you say and something was happening with dinners, that's a positive. Like there was some magic happening.
Yeah. There was a
Like it was
kinetic, like, I was like, there's something to this. What's up with this? And I was like, we were hosting the monthly for a year and a half in Ryan's hair studio. We were cooking, which is always like LOL, because neither of us are particularly skilled or passionate about cooking. And so we were running these weird bespoke dinners for our friends and each inviting 4 people who didn't know each other. And I was like, something's magical about this, and I don't know what it is. And let's keep hosting them and like see what happens. And I
yes,
wonder what's
that's good.
gonna come from this. And then I met this guy at a wedding, moved to San Francisco for that relationship, worked for a tech billionaire for 2 seconds. And
Don't
there
we
was
all?
also, as
Yeah,
one does.
that's one does.
And it was funny because there's like these moments I can pinpoint specifically with Ryan that he was threaded through my story, unrelated and related to Dinner with Strangers, where like he was visiting San Francisco, came to see me, and um, he had gotten to my house to drop his bag off, and then we were getting an Uber to go meet my boyfriend for dinner. And he put his bag down and he looked at me, and I looked at him, and I didn't know if I was already not happy. Like it already wasn't going well.
Hmm.
And I knew that he saw it on my face, and we
Yeah.
both were like, are we going to do this right now? And I opened my mouth to say like to say this isn't going well or whatever. And then I instead was like, I can't remember which one of us said, should we call the Uber? And we were like, yeah, let's do that. But it was like, he saw it already. And then he was the one I called 8 months later to be like, okay, I'm ready to
Yep.
spill the guts. And he's like, come back to Toronto and run this dinner and it's going to be great. This does loop back to Jonathan
I got it.
eventually. So I get back with this newfound clarity to turn the dinner series into a business and turn the hair studio into a community art space and to rent it
Oof.
out in the way that Ryan had started Alex's floral business for new theater companies or people who didn't have a storefront for their clothing company. Like, I had this vision to turn the space into like this like collective, this arts collective.
Yeah.
And then, but I had come back from San Francisco February of 2020, and then COVID started 5 weeks later. So I was like,
Yes.
I'd had this like epiphany of what I knew I wanted to do with my life, came back to do it. I had all this newfound motivation and clarity and like certainty. And then
Then,
everything shuttered down.
yep.
So then I was like, well, I guess I'll write poems to entertain myself in the meantime, to keep myself
Wow.
busy. And so, and to return to my creative self, unrelated
Yes.
to needing it to be my job or thinking that it was going to lead anywhere. It was like my
Huh.
experience in San Francisco was like, if I'm not making art, I feel like my soul died, and no salary and no success matters if I'm not connecting to my creative self.
You got you took a minute to get hyper practical. We're gonna go take a good money job
Yeah.
and follow the marriage track, the hyper
Yeah.
practical decision.
Yeah.
And your soul said, I'm dying.
Dying. Yeah. Atrophy, like just withered
Yes.
completely. And so all of a sudden it was like I parked the dinner magic and being like, are we ever going to gather in groups again? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Like, returning to my creative self, I start sharing them on Instagram. I start kind of developing an audience on Instagram. I'm like, I guess I'm a poet now. Like, I guess there's what's the magic here? I guess I'm a writer. I guess I'm a poet. I guess I can call myself this. And so I decided I had enough of an audience that I'm like, I could like traditionally publish a book. I should start querying agents. I queried Joy in that season, and she wrote me and said like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I don't work with poets, but like, I love you. So that was the beginning of our friendship. She was
Yep.
awesome.
She's great.
And then Jonathan and I were put unconsensually in a group text by a mutual friend who said, hey, you guys should meet. And now I'm like, great.
Awesome.
Now I have to talk to this guy. He's going to think, now he feels obligated to talk to me because this mutual friend told us we had to talk. And now no one wants to be here in this group text. I'm like, and I looked at his thing and saw he was like a Christian agent. And I was like, I don't want to be in that. I don't want to hang out with those people, regardless of my nuanced spiritual description of where I land spiritually, whatever. And then we got on the call, and within 30 seconds, I'm like, oh, I love him. I'm like,
He's
obsessed
fantastic.
with him.
Yes.
And I was like, this is gold. And within, he had read my writing sample, and he's like, yeah, within 3 minutes into the call, he's like, yeah, you're a poet. Like, this is poetry, but like you could also say it's poetic prose. And
Yes.
if we call these essays, it's just going to open a different type of book deal you get. Do you want to call these essays? And I was like, I'm down to play ball. Sure. And so
Yeah.
within that instant moment, I started thinking of my writing in a different way. I started like playing around with writing longer form and took the creative nudge to see what I could do with it. And so we wrote a proposal. I mean, Jonathan calls himself a midwife of books, and
Yes.
he really did that with me, and has done that
Yeah.
with my career too, of like following this route of like kind of getting on the river. I've started a million metaphors here, sorry, but
That's fine.
we so we wrote this like super esoteric book proposal for this like really esoteric book that's like, everything is unsolvable and impossible, but art is the thing that makes us feel held. And all of the publishers were like, we're not putting that on
We
the
can't sell
shelf.
that.
We
Yeah.
can't talk about that. No one wants that book. And who the hell are you, by the way?
Yes.
And I was like, right,
Yes.
who the hell am I? I don't know. And then there was a publisher who they were like, we like you, we hate this book, but we like you. Could you write this type of book for us? And so again, it was sort of like, let me try that on and see what I can do with that. They wanted me to write a book about love and relationships, and I was like, nobody needs it. I don't need that book. You don't need that.
No,
Nobody
you
needs that
should.
book.
Like, you think you want these stories. I don't think you want these stories.
I don't even want these stories, and this is my life.
I want to hit pause here for a second, because the thing you're talking, as I understand it, Jonathan's looking at poetry you're writing and saying, hey, this could work long form.
Yeah.
You had a moment previous to that in which someone actually quite literally did the opposite for you, in which you were writing. You had a blog. You were blogging,
Right.
and someone reached out to you and said, "Hey, this sounds like poetry," and
That's
like
right.
and helped you bend it the other way. So you kind of
Yeah.
have both things. So quickly tell that story because you kind
Yeah.
of had folks from the outside. Well, I'll say this
Mhm.
more than one time, and it's part of why I really like about your story arc, and I like the way we started this conversation this time around. Not the last time was great too, but this is great because you used the word humbled. Like
Mhm.
I was humbled in this process.
Mhm.
And that can be that can feel super shitty, but in our
Mhm.
humility, we end up being open to
Yeah.
not just like what's available to us out here, but actually
Right.
end up being like open to what's happening in here
Mhm.
and then to
Mhm.
someone else's perspective. So someone else, you were blogging,
Yeah.
someone reached out and said, "Hey, this sounds like poetry." What happened?
Yeah. So I started a blog in my music folk era because I had songwriter's block because I was calling myself a songwriter and calling myself a musician, and that needed to I had to deliver, but no one to whom. Like I had created all of this unnecessary pressure of myself that I was already behind at 21 and like had already messed it up when I moved here because I had 4 jobs and I was so broke and was just like learning how to afford olive oil and toilet paper and like how to be an adult and human in
Uh-huh.
the city. And so I started this blog of like just sort of like little musings and my only goal was like, oh, I'm going to write something every day just to like do something fun that has nothing to do with my identity, which is
Yes.
being a musician. And
Yeah.
so it was like, it doesn't matter if it's bad because this isn't who I am. It's just something I do. And then it became,
That's good.
I became what I practiced. I became
Yes.
what I put my time into of the 10,000 hours. And um, so I had a WordPress blog as one did in 2012 or whatever. And so like some random stranger who I have no idea who this person was. It was just some musing and they were like, "Hey, this kind of sounds like a poem." And they took my words verbatim and they put line breaks in them, which again, poems don't have to have line breaks in order to be a poem, blah, blah, blah. But he was
Regardless.
like, he, he,
Yes.
he took it and kind of tweaked it a little bit and like,
He
here, cause
he applied a set of rules, a relatively arbitrary set of rules to your existing project, and
that's right.
you saw it
And I was
differently.
like, huh. And so then I started playing around with line breaks, which really, again, are just like
Totally.
poetry's just all about like, you can do whatever you want.
Yes.
And, And so that did set me and then it sort of was like, I don't even know if I claimed the word writer or poet, um, at that point. Like, poet always has been, like, a weird word to claim because people don't really know what to like, especially if you're talking to someone you don't know, and they're like, "So what do you do?" And you're like, "I'm a poet." They're like, "What?" Like, "What
Where's your
what do you mean?"
beret? What do you mean you're a poet? You don't
Right.
have a beret on.
They're like, "We don't know what to do with that." And I'm like, "Trust me, we don't know what to do with it either." Like
No scarf, no beret, no poetry.
That's right. That's right. Um, yeah, so we and that I mean, this also comes into identity and who
Yeah.
instead of being like, "I write stuff," saying, "I am a writer." Like,
Yes.
when do we claim that for ourselves?
Yep.
Who whomst among us gives us permission to do that? And it turns out it's mostly us and, like, what feels liberating to call ourselves, and that it feels like
Yes.
being at home.
Yeah.
Um Because that was also going on in that season when I started Dinner with Strangers, my band had ended of like, the person I was dating at the time was, we which you called a nerd, that
Yeah. Yeah.
he had done his master's in neuroscience and was working at
Nerd.
Salesforce, but
Nerd.
he was yep, yep, he was classically trained in piano, but he
Yeah.
didn't call himself a musician, and I'm trained by ear and play worship chords, which are, the 4 the 4 chords. And I'm like,
Worship chords. Girl,
I'm a musician, you know?
that's not helping anything.
Myself or the
No, it's a
cause.
worship chords. Can we stop? God, terrible.
I just threw that into people's little
But these
facetious.
junctures, it was like other people spoke things and you were open to them. Not whether it was like, here's the way you're writing. Have you what about this? Literally,
Mhm.
they took your stuff and like rearranged it.
Right.
and you open yourself to that, and then later for someone to say you're doing this, but and then like kind of reverse that process.
Right.
One of the things one of the one of the conversations I constantly have with people in the arts has to do with like I talk about identity a lot, and you and I have talked about this a fair amount. Like I try not to care too much about like the thing people are making. Like that's fine because my concern is constantly like who you're becoming, and words like musician or poet can be really restricting, which
Right.
isn't like to say anything particularly about the word or the industry. It has to
Right.
do with like our attachment to it. Like I get
That's right.
attached to I saw someone was it yesterday? I saw someone yesterday and who I hadn't seen in a while and she introduced me to her friend. She goes, "This is my friend Justin. He is a musician." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And because I was like, "Am I? I guess." I mean, I have guitars and stuff, but like we become attached to these words.
Right.
And our attachment kinda limits sometimes can our attachment to certain kinds of identity can limit our vision of ourselves, which is why, like, the word artist is to me, so much it's so much broader, so much freer. When Seth Godin talks about art, he says, "You know you're making art if you can say, 'This is gonna work, and this is not gonna work,' and mean both those things at the exact same time." And, like,
Yeah,
now you're
that's
making
good.
art. Like, if, like, this is
Right.
absolutely we're gonna kill it.
You're on to
Also, this
something.
is totally gonna fail. Like,
Right.
now you're making art.
Right.
To be an artist, at least, like, it is broad enough as, like,
Right.
I can't really get my hands around that thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so having other people say, the thing you're doing, can you try to do it differently?"
Right.
At least early on, it almost always takes someone else because I'm so attached to my form and the way I'm doing it, they're like, "I don't really see the other possibilities." It
Right.
takes someone else saying something.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if this metaphor is gonna land
Let's give it a
for
shot.
whatever, but it kind of feels like thinking about the names and titles we give ourselves,
Uh-huh.
musician, artist, caregiver, whatever. Also, we do that with gender and with sexuality, and like there are titles similar. Some people would say, no, it's really important to me that like I am I am bisexual and that's the name for this thing. And other people are like, I don't know what you would call it. I'm me. And they're like,
Yeah,
it's so fluid to them that like
yeah,
having to name it feels too containing. Sometimes the names
yes,
we have are too containing because they're like, it's too floopy and flowy for me to call it anything. Back off,
yes.
I'm just me. And there are other people who are
Uh-huh.
like, no, this being able to like give myself the gift and grace of saying like I'm a part of the queer community or I'm part of the
Yes,
LGBTQ community is there's a freedom and there's like a belonging and there's a
yes,
liberation that comes in those titles. So, and I think that like in our art by claiming it as one thing, there's an ownership like an authority that we're claiming for ourselves when we call ourselves
sure.
writer, and then sometimes it can feel um limiting as well.
Everything's helpful, I think, for a season.
Yeah.
Like to attach myself to so calling myself a singer-songwriter for a long time.
Right.
Sure, singer-songwriter, great. That like, this is what I do, and it allowed me to, like, focus 'cause
Mhm.
I constantly have, like, 4 or 5 projects happening at all times, which
Mhm.
I can do now because I learned, like, during the season in which I was a singer-songwriter, like, this is the job, and I've
Mhm.
gotta do this, and these things are peripheral. So,
Yeah.
like, it can be helpful for a season to lock in,
Yeah.
but I have to long term I have to hold all those things really loosely.
Yeah.
Not only because the market changes, but I change,
Yeah.
and I won't be the same person. I don't have the same capabilities as time
Right.
goes on.
Right.
Do
Totally.
you on that note, as you're writing this book, you're putting this thing together, were there things that bubbled up for you that were like, you're doing this thing, you're locked in, you're putting together a book. Were there other projects that were, like, bubbling up in your head? You're like, "This would be kinda cool." Did anything spring up for you along the way?
Well, it was a funny that part of this writing process that's been so funny is that again, it's but the book ended up being about Dinner with Strangers, which is a completely different project. And that was all
Yes.
simultaneously happening of like in COVID going, I guess I'm never doing Dinner with Strangers. Like, has that ship sailed? Like, was that I came back to do that, but now the world has changed and it ended.
Yes.
Like, am I never gonna do that again? And then in 2023, I was like, well, maybe I'll mess around and like see what happens and put a dinner together. And then had a video go viral on TikTok, and like overnight, all of a sudden dinners were selling out in 20 seconds. And so then I'm like in talks with Jonathan, querying a couple different books while the project of Dinner with Strangers is going on, and then going like, am I going to build an empire of like community events and be a facilitator, and like, am I going to become Glennon Doyle? And like,
I think as long as you
who
call it an
am
empire,
I?
we're all gonna be fine. As long as you call it an empire. Yeah.
Exactly. That's yeah, exactly. And everyone wants that. That's what
Yes.
everyone's begging.
For more empires.
They've been asking, and so I said, "Okay, fine. I'll build us an empire that I'm in charge of, and you'll be the minions." Yeah, that's what I've been doing here.
The
Um,
humility with which you approach and even the way you present yourself, and we've talked about all the persona stuff a little bit in our conversations, but b- like the way you go about doing what you do, I think this is true of most folks. What interests me in what you do has to do with like the way you lean into it. In other words, your posture
right,
in relationship to your work and in relationship to the people you're working with
right.
is the thing that I find like particularly magical about the stuff you're
Mhm.
up to. Which is why, the chapter, you call "On Apocalypse" and the ways we've already figured out how to survive. Um, as I've mentioned before, like, just the word apocalypse shows up, and I'm drawn to that because I think about endings all the time.
Mhm.
I think about endings a ton. The word apocalypse has to do with revelation, has to do with, seeing things anew or things being revealed.
Mhm.
And nothing quite does the work of unveiling or unmasking like an ending. Like when things come
Mhm.
to an end, like people get really real with themselves.
Yeah.
And so this chapter, you said, growing up, I always secretly kind of fancied myself as the heroine in some hypothetical dystopian post-apocalyptic storyline. Wait a sentence. I would be maybe the chosen one to rally the group, give some inspired speech, lead us into battle against whatever it was we were fighting. And then towards the tail end, and I love this reflection, um, I started thinking the world has already ended 1,000 times and continues to end all over the place. Hitting pause, like that's an awareness. Like that's not just a truth where it's like, "Oh, yeah." Like, the reality that things are ending all the time, like, is a fundamental, like, human spiritual awareness, like, to come to grips with that. So
Mhm.
I love this. The world's already ended 1,000 times and continues to end all over the place. It ended in Syria, in Germany, it's ended in the Troubles in Ireland, bombed out schools and grocery stores, every church for miles. It ends every day when people have to give up their homes because of medical debt, when people can't get access to food, water, medical aid, when people have to shit on the street because they could get arrested in a Starbucks if they don't buy a latte first. The world has ended and continues to end in Afghanistan and Iran. It ends right here where I can't bring myself to have coffee with an old friend because our differing political views feel like an insurmountable divide. Um, in every one of these instances, people have stayed. People have said, and I love this line. In every one of these instances of the world ending, people have stayed. People have said, "Not so. I won't have it." In a like in a season, you mentioned COVID a couple times. Like in a season when not just COVID, but like so much of the machinery to which we are submitted as citizenry is intentionally bent on like this sort of odd binary of like pulling people apart,
Mhm.
like pushing people towards isolation and making us feel like we have to be experts about everything. In other words, like there's so little interdependency, there's so little humility, there's so little community.
Mhm.
In in that season, you went about doing this project that was just about putting people in a room that didn't know each other so
Mhm.
they could talk to one another and then helping them actually engage with one another. And the thing I loved about the project and that continue to love about the project is there wasn't a "and so that." There wasn't that. Like, it was enough for you to put people in the room and let's see what happens. Because that's the magic of, like, human life and of artistry is, like,
Mhm.
I don't really know. I have hopes,
Yeah.
but I don't really know how this thing is gonna play out.
Right. Yeah.
You're putting this thing in the world now. you don't know how this is gonna go.
Right.
What do you hope for? What are you hoping this does?
Well, I think that's the beautiful thing about I mean, I guess I'm allowed to have hopes. I hope it
Yes,
goes
you are.
I hope people don't discover that I'm a terrible artist and they're like, "This was nice." That would be nice.
Sure.
Um, I hope it inspires people to think about the way that they're moving through the world, and I hope,
Hmm.
um, it helps them consider our interconnectedness
Yeah.
and, yeah, because the model of dinner with strangers is like, come have dinner with strangers and, like, see what happens, and it's, like, almost unmarketable because I'm like, there's no delivery, there's no deliverable, there's no, like, "And this will happen," as you phrase it so well, like, the "and so that" is absolutely, like, cannot happen, and,
Yes.
like, in contrast, like, a dating event is like, "And hopefully you meet someone you like. Hopefully you leave with a couple numbers." This is like,
Yes.
come meet some people who you may or may not enjoy, and we'll see
Yes.
what we'll see,
Yeah.
and it's not and that is what community is in our neighborhoods of, like, we don't all have to be best friends. We don't all
Yep.
have to agree on all of the same things, but we do all live here, and we do all share common spaces, we share transit, we share like,
Yes.
the things that we do affect each other,
Yep.
whether explicitly or implicitly or by default, um, and, I think we want a mic drop moment, we want an answer, we want, like, a
Yes.
purpose and productivity and, like, a end game and, like, to be
Or
able
at
to
least
present
or at
it.
least we think we do.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's not how that's not how it works, baby, you know? Like, that's like we're like weird neighbor guy who, like, always leaves trash on the sidewalk or whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe we can get him to see that, like, that garbage affects the rest of the street, but, like, it's probably not going to be like how the Grinch Stole Christmas? The Grinch, whatever, where he has an
Sure.
epiphany and is like, now he's baking us all ham every month or something. Do you
Yes.
know what I mean?
I do.
We all have to live here. I lost my I lost my
That's
train of
fine.
thought. You gotta bring me back.
No, I got you. The part of the word I want to insert here is the word surprise. Like surprise.
Mhm. Yeah.
Didn't see that. Didn't expect that.
Yeah.
It's really what makes it is maybe like the secret. You can't even call it an ingredient. It's like, and I could get choked up thinking about it. Like, it's what makes relationship like so magical. Is like it's like, oh shit, like those moments, like the
Mhm.
wow.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that happens in the process. Why I want people making art. Like I want you
Yeah.
to make art. I don't
Yeah.
want you to make art because we need more books. We don't need more books. I don't want you to make art because we need more like 6-song EPs. It's a fantastic EP. But like we don't need more music. But well, we need more of you. And the thing we did, like the surprise of like the humility to be surprised at myself
Mm.
is a thing that like maybe nothing, maybe nothing quite like the arts actually does for us. It actually
Right.
like I was surprised to find this in me. And
Right.
I was surprised that this was true of me. So the
Right.
fear of like, the sort of goofy, and I know you're like probably like 65 to 67% being serious when you say, I hope they don't discover that I'm a terrible writer. Like, but the light side to that fear is like the hope that like I hope people find me beautiful in my work. I want people to
Right.
see what I do and think like, wow, that's magical. And
Right.
that's a surprise. And
Right.
we end up being surprised by one another when we have the humility to open ourselves up to
Mm.
a conversation. So
Right.
like thematically, this whole conversation, like the openness with which you have gone about your creative journey
Right.
up to this point,
Mhm.
I think it's incredibly valuable,
Right.
and such a departure from the mechanism that we're being pitched, uh, from every corner of industry and artistry right now is that
Right.
it's about product, it's about result, it's about sales, it's about numbers.
Right.
It's not. It's actually
Right.
about surprise. It's actually about the
Totally.
unexpected.
And I think um the reason why it's hard for me to say, like, what do I hope for this book is because I've experienced over and over that, like, when we put something out, people respond differently. In the examples you gave of, like, that person reading my blog and saying, like, "Oh, this is actually a poem." It's like, I thought I was putting out one thing, and I mean, and my intention rang true. It doesn't mean that he discovered a fallacy or
No,
something like that. But
no.
I've also, with Dinner with Strangers, been like, here's this invitation. I think it's good that we talk to each other. And like, here's sort of the structure that I'm presenting of like, come, come curious and like, let's see what happened. That's the thing I'm putting out. And what's happened over the last, like in the last 3 years is people come and they say, oh, my divorce was finalized. And this was my gift to myself, is like the first thing I did as like a joyful thing all on my own. Or,
Hmm.
um, yeah, a lot of people, that's happened a few times where someone has a variation of that of like, I've been going through something really hard and like I wanted to be inspired by a room full of people who maybe have done some cool stuff and like that'll inspire me to do more.
Yes.
Um Someone said like that they were doing something they haven't done before in the weeks leading up to their 50th birthday. So this was their thing they hadn't done before, was have dinner with strangers. And then it just in February, I asked someone how they heard about it or why they came to Talking with Strangers, which is another event I run. And she said, well, I'm doing something. What was her thing? She said, yeah, I'm doing something new every week. So this is my new thing this week. And I said, what'd you do last week? And she goes, oh, I stole a goat. And I'm like, I could never have, that was not my invitation. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm surprised.
God,
Like, so
that would
you
put
put,
some I would feel so much pressure as an organizer to like, "You stole a goat last week. I hope tonight feels great. Hope
I
tonight's
better
cool because you
deliver.
stole it.
Yeah.
This
Right.
better be amazing."
Yeah, and I was like, "How did that come out? Like, was it premeditated?" She's like, "Well, the situation kind of, like, presented itself," and I thought, "Well, this'll cross off my new thing this week, so I guess we're stealing a goat." And I'm like, "What'd you do with it?" She's like, "Kinda drove around and then, like, put it back in the field because, like, what am I gonna do with a goat?" And I'm
She
like,
didn't
"Sure."
steal it, she borrowed a goat.
Well,
Okay.
what's she gonna do? Like, take it to the Alps? Like, how do you follow through on stealing a goat? Take it home
That's a
forever?
great honestly, that's a great question, and we're gonna leave the audience with that one. How do you follow through stealing a goat?
Don't ask
How
me.
do you bring the theft of goat to completion? Jess, thank
That's
you
great.
for making time today, sincerely, for making time again.
My pleasure.
Um And I hope and expect you are honest, and I mean this, like, I hope you are continually surprised. I hope that over the
Mm,
course of the book release and the tour, that you continue to be open to and discover, like, things you didn't see coming. 'Cause
thank you.
not only because I want that for you, but because you do really great stuff with those surprises and with those turns. So,
That's so sweet.
go get
Thank you.
surprised. You got it.
I'm open to the surprise. Open to the surprise of very like success would be nice. Whatever, I don't know. Open to it all. Can't wait to hear what it inspires people to do too. I think that's what's going to be
Me too.
fun, is going like people are going to it's going to become bigger than the sum of its parts by what people mirror back.
Absolutely.
So, yeah. Thanks so much, Justin.